Yeah, hello everyone. Am I audible in this?
Yes. Am I audible
Uh,
and
yeah.
also visible since it's
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, you are.
So let me share my screen and formally start our webinar. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone joining us from different parts of the world. Welcome to the last webinar of Altered Securities Hacker Summit 2026. Our topic for today is Bring Your Own Policy, Weaponizing ADMX for Cloud-to-On-Prem Lateral Movement. So before we go ahead, it's very important that we introduce ourselves for those who have joined for the first time or who don't know much about Vishal and I. Let me go ahead and do so. So my name is Hitesh Duseja. I'm a security researcher here at Altered Security. I have about 7.5 years of experience in this domain. And in these 7.5 years, I have about both the offensive as well as defensive experience. It means I have been on both the sides of the security boundary. Uh, as I have a very strong passion for enterprise cloud security and red teaming, ending up in altered security was a natural choice here in India. And also, it's known for specializing in that. Here at Altered, I usually spend my days researching attack vectors in Azure, Intune, Hybrid Entity, Entra ID, and also I had a fling or so with M365 services. Whatever I research, I because I'm coming from an ethical hacking background, it is important for me that attack vectors are found, but we should also have implementable defense measures so that we can help the community as a whole. Now, I would like to hand it over to my co host, Vishal, so that he can introduce himself and we can go ahead in our webinar. Over to you, Vishal.
Thank you, Hitesh. Let me quickly share my screen with you all. Yep. All right. Is my screen visible? Shall we proceed?
Yes, it's visible
Okay.
now.
Great. So, hello everyone. As you already know my name is Vishal Raj, and I'm also a cloud security researcher at Altered Security. Uh, Talking about me, I'm specialized in cloud security, red teaming, and network pen testing, with a research focused on identifying and exploiting misconfigurations in model cloud environment, especially in Azure. Uh, Over the last couple of years, my focus has shifted heavily into AI red teaming techniques to evaluate its attack surface. I also actively write blogs and articles in Altered Security blog page, where I do write my ongoing research and my findings. So if you like to get into that, please feel free to reach out to Altered Security blog page. Okay, so before we begin to the technical stuffs, I would like to introduce the organization behind this, which is Altered Security. So, folks, we are basically an edtech firm. We are specialized in providing cybersecurity trainings and research, specifically focusing on on-prem red teaming and advanced Azure cloud security. So, our primary aim is to bridge the gap between the theoretical part and real-world attack and defense by offering hands-on scenario-based labs and certifications. We have trained more than 50,000 professionals from more than 130 countries. Talking about our Red Lab platform, so I must say affordability is our main USP. So whenever we try to design a new course or lab, we deliberately try to make it as affordable as possible. Our labs are easy to access. So to access our lab, you only need a laptop and a good internet connection, and then you are good. Uh, our labs are more stable and they provide great user experience. Our labs are more fun to solve, and of course, we are big enough to fulfill like enterprise. Talking about our Red Labs, Red Team Labs, so you can access our Red Team Labs training from alteredsecurity.com/online-lab. If you are interested in instructor-led bootcamp, so you can visit alteredsecurity.com/bootcamps. We also published some open source tools and our findings in our GitHub account. So please visit github.com/alteredsecurity. To access the lab, you can visit enterprisesecurity.io. And we also run free labs basically in Azure. So we have more than 100 Azure labs totally free. So for that, you need to visit redlabs.enterprisesecurity.io, log in using your emails, and then you can access all the Azure labs with zero cost. All right. Now, let's talk about this Hacker Summer, right? What is Hacker Summer? So Hacker Summer is an event provided by Altered Security as a month-long red teaming event. So in this Hacker Summer event, we provide our research through blogs and webinars, right? And of course, we are doing it today. In the Hacker Summer, we mainly focus on red teaming on-premises, Active Directory, Azure, and AI. Also, people coming from different places, if you had done some good research in red teaming and you want to showcase your findings, right? So we at Altered Security, we provide you the platform where you can showcase your research. So for that, we generally run this call for paper where you can submit your research. Once you get selected, you will get the opportunity to showcase your projects and research. Right now, call for paper is off, but maybe you can try next year, or maybe you can try in our upcoming AltSec conference and training. We also provide discounts in Hacker Summer. So if you visit to our website, alteredsecurity.com, there you will get 20% discount on all the courses on demand as well as bootcamp. And if you add two or more than two courses, you will get additional 5% discount. So it total become 25% off. Also, we are providing a giveaways to our participants. So if you haven't participated yet, I would heavily recommend to participate so that you can be, chosen as a winner. Okay, so let's talk about webinar grounding rule. So as we already discussed, we would like you to put your questions and queries in general channel in Altered Security Discord server, right? We won't recommend you to put your doubts in Zoom meeting or Zoom chat because we will not be able to pick it from here. Also, to ensure a smooth experience, participants are not allowed to use their microphones and camera. So we have disabled both these facilities for our participants. And I would also request you to maintain the professional conduct and respectful atmosphere throughout the webinar. All right. Okay, so let's get into it. So today we are going to dive into this shifting frontier in hybrid cloud security. Now to understand why we all are here today, we have to look at how enterprise security has evolved over the last couple of years. Folks, for a very long time, I believe Microsoft Intune has been the crown jewel for enterprise endpoint management. Now, because it has the key to the kingdom, right? Allowing administrator to push configurations and run platform script across thousands of devices at a scale. Now, this feature in Microsoft Intune is naturally become the primary target for threat actor or adversary who wanted to pivot from cloud to on-prem environment, right? And by the end of these sessions, you all see exactly how cloud to on-prem lateral movement is still very much alive in a modern cloud environment, in a modern hybrid environment, right? And most importantly, we are going to discuss about the defense mechanism, how we can start defending against this kind of attacks. So further ado, let's get into it. Before moving ahead, if you guys have any questions, you can put it on Discord. Let me check. Okay, no new questions, then we can begin. Just a second. All right. Okay. Let's talk about Microsoft Azure and Entra ID. I believe most of us are already familiar with these two terms, but just refresh our knowledge again. So Azure is Microsoft cloud computing platform, just like AWS from Amazon and GCP from Google. Now, in cloud computing platform like Azure, instead of buying a physical server or maintaining it, companies can use Azure to store their data, to store their applications. They can run virtual machines and access various IT services over the internet. And that's the main advantage of cloud computing, right? It helps organization reduce hardware maintenance, hardware cost. It helps organization improve their scalability, security, and access those resources from anywhere in the world, right? Microsoft has more than 200 products and cloud services. Of course, I'm not going to name all of them. So if we talk about some of the famous products from Microsoft, uh, it would be Key Vault, right? Where companies can store uh, keys, secrets, and certificates. Then Azure provide storage account to store your structured and unstructured data. Then you have virtual machine, right? Function app as a serverless machine where you can run code. Logic app, web applications, Kubernetes, Kerberos, sorry, sorry, Kerberos, not Kerberos, Kubernetes, Dockers, and many more. Kerberos is also a part of Intra ID, but not in Azure. Uh, Microsoft also claimed that 95% of Fortune 500 companies use Azure as their cloud service. If this is a true, I don't know what AWS is doing, why they are claiming that we are the world largest cloud service provider in the world. Someone is lying, of course. All right, so uh, let's get with a brief introduction about Entra ID, formerly known as Azure Active Directory. So for me, Entra ID is Microsoft multi-tenant managed identity service. Maybe it sounds complicating to you, but trust me, it's not. Now, what I intend here with this multi-tenant managed identity service is each tenant, whether that's an Azure tenant or whether that's an O365 tenant, is directly associated with one directory service, uh, with one Azure Active Directory, right? And that's the default architecture from Microsoft. You cannot envision a single tenant without Entra ID, right? So at a higher level, Microsoft Entra ID is an IAM, identity and access management solution for your cloud application, for Microsoft first party applications, right? And they don't only work as an IAM solution for Microsoft application, but they also work as an IAM solution for your own custom cloud application. Now, what do I mean by that? Suppose you as an organization, you are building a customer facing application, right? So that your user can log into your application from anywhere in the world, and they can access resources. Now, to do that, you have to handle the authentication, authorization. You have to build login page. You have to store the user session cookies and passwords in databases, right? Heavy lifting stuffs you have to do. Now, with Microsoft Intra ID, what you can do, you can use Intra ID as an IAM solutions, as I already discussed. Now, in that case, when user try to log into your applications, they will redirect to Microsoft Intra ID, the Microsoft authentication platform. There, the user will perform a login operations. Once the user logged in using their Microsoft account, they will redirect back to your applications with the session ID, right? So here you only need to perform an what we call app registration in Intra ID, but this is out of this context, so we are not going to deep into that. Right. Also, Intra ID delivers the capability including single sign-on, right? Multi-factor authentications, conditional access policy, privilege identity management, and also you can onboard your on-prem user to Intra ID, to your cloud using Intra Connect, right? All right. Now, let's move our discussion to Microsoft Intune. So, at its core, Microsoft Intune is a cloud-based unified endpoint management solution. Intune gives administrator a centralized platform to securely manage an organization's entire fleet of endpoints, right? Uh, we are not just talking about the corporate Windows laptop, but Intune can scale across smartphones, laptops, tablets, right? Intune also support a massive cross-platform footprint, including Mac OS, Windows, Linux, iOS, and Android. All right. So Intune typically operates in three management plan: MDM, mobile device management; MAM, mobile application management; and a hybrid combination of both. Now, for the scope of our talk today, our primary focus is strictly going to be on mobile device management or MDM mode. Now, you may ask why MDM, right? Because MDM is where an administrator inherit system level control over the operating system. Let's try to get this by taking an example. Suppose uh, there is a company called ABC and it has 100 employees. Each employee is given a a company laptop to work from their office as well as from their home. Now, without Intune, all the employees uh, have to manually install the software in their laptop, right? In some cases, they have to enable or disable antiviruses. They need to manually install Windows Update. And if a laptop is lost, company data remains on, right? But this can be solved with Microsoft Intune using MDM. So with Microsoft Intune MDM, the first step will become the device enrollment. So when your employees get a new device, they simply log in using their Microsoft accounts. After login, the laptop become a part of Microsoft Intune device, right? After step one, this step two is came into the picture. That is uh, automatic configuration where Intune automatically set up a password policy for your laptop. Intune can enable the BitLocker encryptions in your laptop, and Intune can also turn on Microsoft Defender. After that, the compliance check. So Intune can check whether your device is compliant or not. That means whether your antivirus is updated or not, whether your BitLocker is running or not, or whether your Windows is up to date or not, right? Uh, After step 3, in this step 4, we have access control. So the employees opens Outlook in their laptop. Since the device is Intune joined and the device is compliant, the user can easily access their Outlook mail. If the device get detached from Microsoft Intune, or if the device becomes non-compliant, in that case, the administrator can enforce policy where the users cannot access any corporate data, right, using conditional access policy. And also in case of laptop lost, the administrator has the ability to enforce, you can say, security controls like wiping out the data, shutting down the laptop, restarting, right, and locking the devices. So if we recall whatever we discussed in the example, so through MDM, administrator has the authority to centrally manage device settings, right? Like administrator has the ability to enforce security controls. They can deploy configuration policies like ADMX based settings or OMR URI settings, right? Administrators uh, have the ability to execute management script and remediations, perform remote administration tasks like wiping, retiring, or restarting the system. They can perform configuration compliance and update requirements if necessary. Okay, now let's discuss about Intune REST, right? Uh, we all know to manage a modern enterprise effectively, administrator needs power, right? And Intune give them exactly by providing the capability to deploy and uh, execute scripts directly on the Intune giant device. Now, what does that mean? Suppose if you, as an administrator, if you need to change the settings on 10,000 devices at simultaneously, right? Now, using that Intune, you have this feature enabled. So on Windows, that means deploying a PowerShell script, and on Mac OS and Linux, this means running a shell script, right? All right. Now, this script do not run in a low privilege mode, right? So they execute under a high administrator privileges, possibly on the operating system. So in Windows, the script run as a local system, and on Mac and Linux, the script run as a root privileges, right? All right. Uh, Now let's spend some time on discussing about OAuth flow. So basically, OAuth is an delegated authorizations framework, right? It it allows the users, the resource owner, to share his resources with other client without need to sharing the username and password. Okay, let's try to explain this by taking an example. Suppose there is a user uh, and a client. So what, we have four participants, right? The resource owner, the client, excuse me, the client, the authorization server. In this case, the authorization server is Microsoft Identity Platform, and the fourth one is resource server. Suppose there are two clients. The first client is Facebook, and the second client is Microsoft Outlook, right? Now, Facebook wants to access user Outlook for there could be a multiple reason, right? Now, there is a challenge. How user can provide access to his Outlook to Facebook without need to sharing their username and password. And Facebook can't ask for user name and password. It is a very bad way to ask for password. So this problem can be solved using OAuth. So developer has created this framework. Now, in that case, when user try to log into in the client simply redirect the user to Microsoft Identity Platform. There, the user get consented. Okay, this client, this Facebook client wants to access your Outlook. Are you willing to provide it? Once the user click on accept button, the uh, authorization server, which is Microsoft Identity Platform, uh, uh, issue an access token to the client. Now, using that access token, the Facebook now can access resources on behalf of a user, right? I hope this is clear to you all. Uh, if you have any questions, you can ask, or we can proceed with next slide. Let me check the Discord. Okay, no question till now. Good. All right. Now, we need to discuss two more terms here. The first one is first party applications and the public client. So talking about first party applications, so they are built, owned and published by Microsoft. Basically, they are the application, they are the client IDs, right? And because Microsoft built them, Entra ID by default trust all the Microsoft first party applications almost across every enterprise tenant. Now that means they often don't have the consent. Uh, they are already pre-consented. So if user tries to log into those applications, they don't need to provide an admin consent, or they don't need to be an admin in order to consent to those applications, right? So this is first party application. Now talking about public client. So most of the first party application are public client. Uh, Now what do I mean by public client? So when the client request access token from the authorization server, right? I'm not going deep into the workflow, right? So if the client is a public client, the client does not require to send his client secret to the authorization server in order to get the access token in exchange from authorization code. Maybe right now it is sounding a bit confusing, but I would suggest you after this session, you can visit to the website, you can read about workflow, and there you will get a clear idea, right? So we already discussed about public client and a, sorry, first party application and a public client. So if a client is a public, then it doesn't require to pass its client secret to the authorization server. Now that means that any user who knows the first party application and which is a and if the first party application is a public client, they can use that client ID in their local machine to request an access token on behalf of a user. At that time, they have to provide, of course, they have to provide the user and password of that user. All right. Now let's discuss about different types of token. As you already know, we have discussed about access token, right? So access token is used for uh, requesting resources from a protected resource, right? Talking about refresh token, so it is a special type of token which is used to request an access token. So once the access token get expired, usually it get expired within 24 hours. So once the access token is expired, the refresh token can be used to request a new access token, right? And the lifespan of refresh token is generally of 90 days. All right. Now the third type of token is primary refresh token, the PRT, right? So PRT basically used by Microsoft to perform a single SSO operation. So you may observe when you log into, for example, my applications, right? myapps.microsoft.com. And once you logged in, if you visit to Outlook, at that time, the Outlook don't ask you for your user and password, right? Now, this is only because of PRT. So the session from your My Apps is used to get a new access token for other app, for your Windows, sorry, for your Microsoft Office. So, uh, so when you log into the Azure portal, at the front, you see the GUI, right? The HTML and CSS, all of these things. But when you access some of the resource within your Azure, for example, if you try to access subscriptions or a function app, right? At the back end, uh, our API is called with the ARM access token. So everything is happening through an API call, right? Even if you go from Azure to Entra ID, so at the back end, the machine requests a new access token for a graph resource in order to access your Entra ID objects. All right. Let's talk about the inner working of Intune. So, of course, Intune doesn't operate in a vacuum, right? So the primary engine powering almost all the Microsoft applications, whether that's an Entra ID or Intune or M365, is backed with Microsoft Graph. Now, think of Microsoft Graph as a unified single API gateway for your entire Microsoft ecosystem, right? So every time an administrator performs any actions, for example, in Intune, if administrator performs system updates on 1,000 of devices, Intune joint devices, at the back, Microsoft Graph call is being used. Now, here the main part comes. Now, because everything runs on an API, right? So an attacker doesn't need to hijack your session, your browser session. The attacker only need to get the access token with an appropriate scope. Now, using that access token, the attacker can access all your devices that have been joined to the Microsoft Intune. And in today practical, we are exactly going to showcase how using the token we can perform malicious actions on Windows machine. So as you can see, these are two scopes, device management configuration dot readwrite.all and device management script dot readwrite.all. Don't worry, these two scopes are going to be discussed detailed in the upcoming slide by Hitesh. All right, let me start this video. So where we are going to we will discuss about the Intune abuse 3 through a Intune portal. Okay, so as you can see, as an attacker, we logged into Microsoft Intune, right? And we logged in as a user, Mikhail. So in devices, if you go to all device tab, right? There you can see all the devices that has been joined to Microsoft Intune. In this case, only two devices are joined and both devices are Windows. Now, if you want to run a platform script, like a PowerShell script, then you can simply done through the Microsoft Intune portal. So if you go to the script blade, there you can add a PowerShell script to all Windows 10 and the latest Windows devices. Just provide the name, select which script you want to execute. Select your PowerShell script. Okay, here basically we are adding all the user and all the devices that are joined to Microsoft Intune. So this script is going to run on all the Intune joined device, especially a Windows device. Now, once you create a policy, right? Once the policy get pushed to all the devices, and the script is going to execute as an anti-authority or as a high privilege user in Windows machine. All right, so that was an attack. Now from here, I would like to submit it to Hitesh for further discussion. So yeah, Hitesh, over to you.
Thank you, Vishal. It was like good demonstration. So let me just share my screen. Please, audience in the Discord channel, let me know if my screen is visible.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So this demonstration that was just shown on your screens by Vishal, this worked for us till October of 2024. In this demonstration that we just observed, if we compromise an Intune admin with their credentials, we can just log into the Intune portal and do the abuse that was shown. This abuse is exactly what Vishal explained in the inherent risk of Intune as an MDM solution. If an attacker gets access to the Intune portal, they can simply upload a script and it would run on the enrolled devices. So it is a perfect delivery mechanism to on enrolled devices, and that is why Intune abuse is very important, so that we can understand and as well as think on how we can protect it. But this service is created by Microsoft, so they did the needful. Let us go down a memory lane on exactly what has been done from October of 2024 till present. So, first thing Microsoft did in October of 2024 was started rolling off mandatory MFA on all admin portals, including the Intune one. It means having a username and password for the Intune administrator is no longer sufficient to access the portal and thus cause the damage. Therefore, we need to do MFA based phishing or somehow get access to the Intune portal after the authentication and MFA is done. Now, think from that perspective back in like November, when this problem was like faced by the security researchers, red teamers, and also I would not like to say, but the black hat hackers, they basically found out that there are some gaps, and that is what we are going to discuss today. So, in November of 2024, one of the security researchers, Doug Jen, he basically shared an undocumented conditional access policy bypass, which includes an application called as Intune Company Portal. In a private knowledge sharing session of his. On December 11 of 2024, during Black Hat Europe, Yuya Chudo, a researcher from SecureWorks, he publicly disclosed this undocumented cap of Intune Company Portal client ID and detailed on how it can be used for Intune abuses. On December of 20, just 8 to 9 days after the Yuya Chudo public announcement, Sunny Chow of JumpSec, he basically published a POC tool called as Tokensmith. Basically, Tokensmith explained, or you can say operationalized, this technique, which was shown in Black Hat Europe, on how can we use this to obtain Microsoft Graph access token from Intune company portal. Why this is important? Because ultimately, as explained in the inner workings of Intune by Vishal, all the operations of Intune are carried out using Microsoft Graph. You can think of it as a medium for Intune operations. Now, in January of 2025, Fabian and his colleagues, also you can say people from the security research community, they basically found that the minted MS Graph tokens using this Intune company portal can enable CRUD operations. It means we can use it to abuse the inherent risk of Intune as MDM, that is, deploy management platform scripts. For Windows, it would be PowerShell, and for Linux and Mac OS, it would be shell scripts. From February to July of 2025, we had altered, used to showcase this abuse in our courses, and because MS Graph permission of the Intune company portal has a scope called as device management configuration.readwrite.all, which was the exact permission which you can abuse to execute PowerShell scripts on enrolled devices as a legitimate feature abuse. Now, think of it, why Intune company portal has conditional access bypass. I would explain it in the next slide for those who are wondering. Now, in August of 2025, we learned that Microsoft has basically replaced or swapped this exact permission for script execution. Please note, the Intune company portal still had that permission. It is no longer usable for PowerShell script execution, because now a new permission scope is required, which is device management scripts.readwrite.all. It means if the Intune company portal alone would not be helpful for script execution. In October of 2025, we discovered a new technique where we could still use the existing permission of device management configuration.readwrite.all in the Intune company portal client ID, but instead of script execution, we used it to push weaponized configurations onto enrolled devices. And that is what the talk of today is all about. In November of 2025, Microsoft went one step ahead and they basically stripped Intune company portal of this permission also, and basically put a stop to both the script execution in August and the weaponized configurations in November. So, in December of 2025 till today, we to maintain our kill chain, instead of Intune company portal app, we found a new client ID in place of it that still had the permission device management configuration.readwrite.all, so that at least, if not scripts, we can still use our novel approach to push weaponized configurations and get remote code execution. Now, with all this history lesson, I'm pretty sure you must all have been confused. So, no worries. Let me explain. Basically, as explained in the earlier demonstration, PRT cookie or even using username password, both are equally valid, whichever you obtain as an attacker. If the PRT cookie does not have an MFA claim, the attacker cannot access the GUI of Intune portal. So it would not be possible for script execution. So the researcher community basically found a workaround, which was in the Intune company portal. Now, for those who doesn't know Intune company portal, even now, if you go to popular app stores like Google Play Store for Android, and for iOS devices, you can go to Apple's App Store. And if you search this application, you will find it. Basically, if I want to access company data on my smartphone, then this Intune company portal is the way to do so. And that is why it is basically a secure way to access enterprise data. Now, just think about it. As I told in the earlier slide, I would explain why it does not have a conditional access policy. We want users, like I'm talking from a Microsoft perspective. Microsoft wants user that they can install this application onto their mobile devices and basically enroll into their enterprise Intune environment and access company data. If they would have put any conditional access policy, it would not have worked. So it was a design decision. Also, for those who are wondering whether this platform script abuse using the access token that I explained in the earlier slide, was it with app permissions or delegated permissions? It was with delegated permissions. That is on behalf of the users who is signing in. So if we obtain a like an access token with Intune administrator or anyone with sufficient Intune permissions, then and only then we can abuse it to make changes in the Intune. So to push either the malicious configurations or the platform scripts. Because as explained in the OAuth flow and also in the inner workings of Intune, the resource server for us is Microsoft Graph and the client is Intune company portal. I hope it is clear. And that was the reason we included the OAuth flow as a refresher because we needed to explain this concept in this particular slide. So coming back to the story, the researcher community found a workaround that uses Graph API calls using the Intune company portal, as it had the scope of device management configuration.readwrite.all for script execution. It was good till it lasted. To prevent script execution, Microsoft swapped the permission that Intune company portal didn't had in its scope. It means during August, the permission was there, but for script execution, that permission is no longer usable. We needed a new permission called as device management scripts, something that this application didn't have. So we found a workaround and we got remote code execution without using platform scripts, just using the existing scope. Then Microsoft also removed this permission from the Intune company portal app. And ultimately, we had to get rid of this app client ID and found a new client ID that still had this permission so that our RC method without script is maintained. I hope it is much clearer now. So let's discuss in detail about the permission scope and what all it can do in Intune. Let me just check if anyone has any doubt on Discord. So before going to the, you can say, core explanation of today, if anyone has a doubt till now, feel free to ask in the Discord channel. I guess there are no doubts, so let me proceed. So the scope device management configuration.readwrite.all, it can be used to create configuration policies, just like how the name goes. And in the world of Windows, it can be used to apply Windows settings. Now there are three ways to do that, either through the settings catalog, through the property catalog, or the templates. In setting catalogs, you can say it is pre-built settings. So if I have FN as an administrator, which is responsible for maintaining Windows settings in their environment, such as an IT administrator, if they want to apply certain, you can say, configuration onto all devices, and all devices are enrolled into Intune, they can simply go to settings catalog, find that setting and apply it. Now, similarly, if they want to read a particular value from the device, so that they can plan what is the existing state of certain property in Windows, then they can use the properties catalog. And for both the things which are not there, in the settings and the properties, they can go to templates, where lot of templates are there for applying additional settings. These settings are basically backed by Windows configuration service providers that satisfy most administration requirements. But what about those settings that are not exposed either through the settings catalog, property catalogs, or the inbuilt templates? For such settings, Intune administrators can use one of the two approaches. Either they can go for the custom templates or they can go for the administrative templates. Now, because our talk is about administrative templates, so I will touch custom templates in a very short manner. So please listen carefully. Basically, custom templates use something called as Open Mobile Alliance Standard. They are, you can say, custom device configurations that help apply those settings using something called as OMA URI paths, which is Open Mobile Alliance Uniform Resource Identifier paths. In case if you get like if you're getting confused with all these jargons, feel free to keep it off your mind, because that is not the core topic for today. I'm just explaining from a top-down approach. So, custom templates, in short, use OMA standard. That's it. But what about administrative templates? So, basically, administrative templates are based on policy definitions, and these in Windows are kept in C Windows policy definitions folder. As you can see, there are a lot of such files. The full form of ADMX is simply Administrative Templates XML, and they are basically used to apply those policy settings beyond the traditionally available ones onto enrolled devices. Now, if we go one step deeper into understanding the ADMX, they are basically an XML formatted document that contains you can say combination of group policy settings in the form of definitions. So I have just shared a screenshot here. As you can see, there is policy name include CMD line, and basically it's the it has a key and a value, and that is it is strictly in XML format. So if you see it carefully, the key is basically a registry path, and the value is probably the value inside the registry, the key of it. So if whatever ADMX policies are constructed, once they are imported into Intune, each of these setting becomes an individual configuration item. So think of it like that. There is this one policy here. This would be treated as one item in the Intune portal or Intune setting. Now, because ADMX contains basically, you can say registry key value pair, they can be used to apply local group policy settings under both the computer configuration or and the user configuration, basically with respect to their Hive, like the HKLM and the HKCU. So, the question that first came to my mind was, because this is used to update registry, we can definitely use it to modify the registry values and achieve remote code execution using that. This was the first thought that came to my mind. The next thought process was, can we use the decade-old technique of registry run keys? For those who are not aware of this, during you can say user logon, if you want to execute certain code, basically you have to configure a registry run and run once keys, and the work will be done. So, and it is also, as you can see, it's a well-documented MITRE attack technique. T1547.001. If you are more interested after the talk to check it, you may do that. So when these two thoughts came to my mind, I was like very excited. We will abuse it as much as possible. And basically, without scripts also, a lot of damage can be done. But, 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 Microsoft knew that this can be abused. So by default, sensitive parts within the registry Hive, HKLM and HKCU are not allowed to be modified. As you can see in this Microsoft Docs screenshot, system, software/Microsoft, and software policies Microsoft. These parts, if we create any ADMX file with a registry key pertaining to values here, it would not be applied. So it's a, you can say, security boundary. So at this stage, the next thought that came to my mind was, what can we do as attackers or red teamers? We can improvise, we can adapt, and we can overcome. Because that is what the job of red teamers are. And we did exactly this. We basically improvise, we adapt, and we also succeed. So now I'm going to demonstrate a Venn diagram. For those who didn't like mathematics in their childhood, I'm sorry, but this was the easiest way that I can come up to explain the approach taken for succeeding the problem that I explained in the last slide. So basically, we needed to find a registry path which is not present in the ADMX block list. And we also need to find a registry path which is related to user action for triggering that. And my search was concluded in a registry path called as HKCU software classes CL SID file explorer UUID open new window command, which perfectly sits at the intersection. It is not present in the ADMX block list, and also we can use it for user action, because how it works is, whenever the user opens the file explorer, this whatever value which is present in this registry key will be executed, and that is how it's a perfect scenario. Just think of it. Why? Opening file explorer in Windows is a very natural action. Everyone does that. So it would also be a lot of stealthiness into it. So get ready, it's showtime. I explained everything, but if I don't show you the demo, then what's the point of everyone coming to this webinar on a Friday evening? So let me go ahead and do that. Please let me know if my screen is visible for the demo on the Discord channel.
Yes, it is. You can proceed.
Okay. So basically, we created an executable to establish a remote shell to our host for this demonstration. Now, before I go ahead, for the further demonstration, let me explain on what exactly was done to create this reverse shell. So we basically created it on C Sharp, basically the .NET framework, because of its wide compatibility with Windows 10 as well as Windows 11. Like there is, I don't think a single a modern Windows 10 or 11 endpoint. Uh, I'm not talking about the server OS. I'm talking about the no, client OS, or you can say the endpoint OS, which does not have the .NET framework. And most importantly, while creating this reverse shell, we also thought on using a very old technique, so that at least the defender cannot pick us up, Windows Defender. So we basically created in such a manner that we will use install util to run this binary, because in the code of this revsh.exe, we have made it in such a manner that when we use install util, which is a lol bin, to execute our binary, for Windows Defender, it would look like some normal installation is going on in the Windows endpoint. For those who don't know what exactly is install util or the lol bin, it is, you can say, binaries which are, you can say, present already as part of OS in the C Windows System 32 directory, or somewhere inside a subfolder. So our idea was to fool the defender that we are installing something, but in reality, we would be executing reverse shell code. Now, uh, basically, we will create a malicious ADMX policy document. While creating this policy document, the idea was we will do like two things. First, we will use curl to download this reverse shell onto basically the C users public documents folder. And then, as it was designed with respect to install util, we will use the install util.exe and uh, pass it with this binary so that it can execute it. So, uh, is it OPSEC safe? Definitely not. But it was made OPSEC safe to a point that Windows Defender cannot touch it. Please understand that the entire demonstration, the point of this entire demonstration is to showcase, you can say, remote code execution with Windows Defender turned on onto a modern endpoint. So do not think it in terms of EDR or the XDRs of the endpoint work. That is not what we are focusing on. If you will ask whether this same binary will it get caught in front of a mature EDR, probably. I do not know. But at least for the built-in things, it works. So as you can see, this is the UUID of Windows File Explorer, and this is sitting inside the class of user, which is SKCU. As you can see, we are using curl to download, and then we are using install util to execute the reverse shell. Now, if suppose your target is someone from a non-English speaking country, uh, let's just say any European country, France or Germany. So if we try to execute any group policy settings via this in English, of course, it would not be compatible, or you can say the right manner to do it. So Microsoft basically has introduced a mandatory thing with ADMX, which is called as ADML. It is simply a language file and basically used if you want to have the compatibility with other languages. So nothing you can say out of the world, a simple language file, and that's all. For our demonstration, uh, like we are showcasing it in English. So this ID has to match with what we have configured in the ADMX file. So now the next step, which is the thing that we are waiting for, is what client ID did we use instead of the Intune company portal app? So there's basically a lesser known app called as Office 365 Client Admin app that had the permission device management configuration.readwrite.all, which can be used to push weaponized configurations via ADMX on Intune enrolled devices. So in our abuse scenario, as it is post exploitation, we will consider that we have obtained a PRT of an Intune administrator. Please note, because of mandatory MFA, the PRT does not necessarily have to have MFA claim. The demonstration that we are showcasing basically do not have that. So we will use RoadTX and use the resource as MS Graph for the tokens. And when we will describe the token, as you can see here, we would have the scope device management configuration.readwrite.all, and the app display name would have Office 365 Client Admin, and the app ID is something that we use with RoadTX. The audience is graph because we are executing an Intune operation. The next step is that whatever ADMX and ADML file that we constructed, we will first upload it. So we are going all hacker mode, and we will definitely use all the raw API calls to do that. We are demonstrating not using any, you can say, AZ PowerShell or AZ CLI, any utility by Microsoft to do these operations. So whatever token that we constructed, we will first use it in the headers, and then we will basically use it in the body. We would have the ADMX and the ADML, and then we would do the operation so that it gets uploaded. It's a simple post operation, nothing fancy here. Once the like ADMX and ADML are uploaded, if you recall in the earlier explanation that this becomes applicable settings now after ingestion. As you can see here, for our demo user, our ADMX policy is ingested and also available as shown in the status. We have to keep note of all the IDs that we get in the response. This is because we are playing with respect to raw graph API calls, and in that the only input that can be used from the output of first operation to the input of next operation.
So Raymond, it says right there, solution. There's no patch. There's no patch yet. So unless we're uninstalling, I'm not uninstalling from any of my stuff because if somebody added it to a server,
Really
they need
sorry,
it.
but
So I'm just gonna wait until
I'm really sorry for
I can't
this.
speak for cloud, but all of my stuff's in Ninja, so it should auto patch.
We request you to please keep your mic at mute so that others can listen. It's a request. So once we like the ID that we obtained, we will use that and do the next operation, which is to apply the settings. Now, once the ADMX policy is uploaded, it becomes applicable settings. So we would first extract the ID of those settings. So now, as you can see, we get our operational setting ID. We will just keep note of it for our next operation. I'm reiterating, we have till now just uploading the ADMX and ADML file. Once it was uploaded, we will use its ID to get its applicable settings ID so that we can use it in the next step. It's like now it becomes applicable settings. You can use that ID and apply that particular thing. So the next step is to create the local group policy configuration object. The way it works is that we first have to create the object and then append it with the two definition IDs that we obtained post uploading the ADMX file. We cannot directly create the group policy configuration object with those ID. We will first create it and then update it with respect to the two settings ID. Even if you are getting confused, do not worry. I'm going to give a recap of it. So as you can see on the screen, we first created the object and later in the presentation values, you can see the definition bind as those two settings ID. Now, once that is done, the next step is to apply this group policy configuration object. Because we are demonstrating a reverse shell scenario, applying it on all devices would be counterproductive. Because we have to have that many listeners for that. So, trying to be as sneaky as possible, we will first try to find an appropriate host name so that we know on what target device we can apply the created configuration object. So as you can see, we get the host name as this M7C1AFM. And we can also see the user which is logged in. The filter that was used to find the host name is Entra ID joint or Azure AD joint, and it should be a corporate device with Windows 10 and later. That is what we are targeting for. And we can see one user Nancy is there on that target device. So basically, when Nancy will open the file explorer, our reverse shell code would be executed and we would get the shell under her privileges. So now the next step would be that if we want to fast track the process of applying, we would also create one assignment filter. In the first step, we found the host name that was required, like finding the target device. And now to speed up the process, we would use it with respect to host name. As you can see, the rule that we have created is device name equals to desktop M7C1AFM. So now, if you will observe, we have the configuration object with those two settings. We have also created an assignment filter. So it is time to basically do the 1+1 operation. That is, apply the group policy configuration object on to the assignment filter, which contains only that specific host name because in our experimentation, we have found it to be much faster. So once we do that, on our listener, we can see we get a reversal. So in practice, uh, you may get reversal in 5 minutes, sometimes 15 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes, sometimes even an hour. This is not like the problem with our scenario or something. It is how Microsoft Intune's backend works. Uh, Basically, it has its own random duration to take settings from the Intune backend and apply those settings. So once we do that, we get a reverse shell. We can see the username as Nancy. So it means the Nancy has opened File Explorer in the system. And if you recall, we had created the assignment filter, and that is why we can also validate that the computer name is exactly on which we did this entire operation upon. So coming back to the slide, now I will, revise the entire thing. So in a nutshell, if I have to speak, the threat actor first compromised the user. If you recall in the demo, we had obtained the PRT of our target user and basically used that to mint MS Graph tokens. Uh, Once we do that, we basically use that MS Graph token to interact with the Intune Graph API endpoints. We crafted a malicious ADMX policy document, which had the operation of downloading the reverse shell into C user's public documents folder and using install util to execute it onto the endpoint. So after creating the malicious ADMX policy document, we will first ingest it into Intune because we want the ingested policy to become applicable settings, and that is why we were extracting that settings ID. Once we do that, we basically pushed the local group policy onto the target Windows endpoint with the help of assignment filter as demonstrated in the video. Then we wait till user opens the file explorer. Once she does that, the curl command and the install util lolbin would be executing our reverse shell code. And finally, we would have achieved remote code execution, like the shell under Nancy's privileges. I hope everyone is clear till here. If anyone has any doubt, please let me know on the Discord channel. Someone is typing. If anyone else has any doubt, feel free to ask. Okay, so I guess there are no doubts, so I will proceed. Yeah, so now we demonstrated everything with respect to Intune abuse in via local group policy ADMX. It was like to find resemblance on how this Intune administrator abuses are still possible. let us learn about the latest attack, which was carried out in March of this year on the Striker group. Basically, let me just use the laser pointer here. Basically, the Intune administrator credentials were stolen, and they had used MFA-based phishing. It means they had obtained the session of the concerned administrator. Once they did that, they jumped onto the Intune console and they did something called as a remote wipe operation, which is like which is kind of a factory reset for all the enrolled devices. So they selected more than 2 lakh endpoints, clicked on remote wipe, and that's it. Every endpoint that was enrolled into Intune were wiped, bringing a complete halt to their day-to-day operations of the Striker group. This is basically a company. And I recall the APT or the threat actor, basically they also published this onto the Telegram channels, kind of a show off. But what they don't understand is that by doing this, they brought a complete operational collapse. Now, I will not go into the politics of it, whether it was intentional or anything. But what I would go into is what can we learn from this incident? So, as you can see, basically the entire thing that was stolen were the MFA bypass based phishing, either using EvilJinx or whatever software they can use. And they got access to the, you can say, session, which was enough for the threat actors to basically wipe 2 lakh plus devices. So, for such sensitive roles in the organization, we need to lock it down. What do I mean when I say lock it down? It means using UB keys or MFA resistant FIDO keys, so that even if somebody tries to phish the important administrators in the target organization, they can safeguard themselves. Also, the next thing they could have done is to enable multi-admin approval. It is simply a maker-checker concept. It means if suppose there are 2 administrators and the APT compromised one of them. If they had enabled multi-admin approval, if they had enabled it, even if the compromised identity had put the single remote wipe command or order on the Intune portal, without the approval of second administrator, they would not have caused this much damage. Most importantly, as defenders, we need to create an alert on bulk actions, such bulk actions which cause heavy damage, so that if it is possible to stop it in the middle or salvage the situation as much as possible, the defenders or the company administrators can do that. Now, for the like whatever research that was carried out, we also need to understand what could have been done more of it. So like there are areas for further research. I would like to share these to the community in general, so that if more research we can do it together as a whole, it would be more fruitful. So basically we need to escalate more for Microsoft. I'm pretty sure we can find more registry paths that can be potentially abused via ADMX group policy. It means I was able to find, you can say, a path which was not present in the ADMX block list, and something which can be used for, causing user actions for trigger. There must be other paths. You know that registry hive is very, very big. So there must be some other paths that can be used for further abuse. Because Intune also has something called as a mobile application management mode, we can explore on how this can be used to push malicious applications, especially on mobile devices such as Android and iOS, to compromise the device of the you can say users, enterprise users. Next, we also have to examine the equivalent of ADMX for macOS devices, which is called as property list files, to deploy such malicious policy and configuration settings on those devices like macOS. Lastly, we need to discover ways to abuse Intune on Linux distributions also. As you may very well know that I read somewhere earlier this year that the Intune desktop share has risen to 5%. So I see it only growing. So if suppose certain users in enterprise, not only for the server work, but for their day-to-day operations, are also using Linux distros, whether it be the Fedora-based ones or the Debian-based ones, uh, I'm pretty sure Intune can play a role there if they are enrolled into it, and we can use it to, abuse certain settings there. With this, I would like to give the control back to my co-host, Vishal, so that he can explain the conclusion of it. Over to you, Vishal.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Hitesh. And I think it was an in-depth technical steps with valuable insights. So, let me quickly share my screen. Just a second. All right, so let's discuss about the conclusion, whatever we have learned in this webinar. So, at starting 2024, Microsoft realized all there is with the Intune, right? And they started cracking down by rolling out the significant countermeasures. Especially, they started removing the necessary scope to run platform script on Intune joint device from Microsoft first-party application. Uh, we saw that Microsoft removed that specific permissions from Microsoft Intune company portal, right? And add those permissions to a new set of scopes, right? Which was not the part of that Intune company portal client application, right? So yeah, we added this meme. So in offensive security, right? So when one door close, what you will do? You will look for other doors? No. So for us, we have to look for windows, right? So God had made some other plans for us. So just climb out from a window and get out from the situation. So yeah, we explore a novel approach, right? That bypass those exact countermeasures. Uh, we learned how a threat actor can take that Microsoft first party applications with a strictly limited graph permissions and subvert it to deploy an ADMX policy and cleanly drop an old school registry that we have already looked, right, to gain a persistent mechanism via local group policy. All right, so this brings us to the end of this webinar. I hope you guys really enjoyed this webinar. Please provide your valuable feedbacks. If you really enjoyed, what difficulties you faced and where we can improve, right? And if you guys have any question or doubt, please feel free to ask. We are open to answer it.
We will now be monitoring the Discord channel again. Whatever queries you have, feel free to put it. So I guess there's one question. So was the motive of the attack to just disrupt day-to-day operation, or how does this remote wipe works? So basically it was the intention of that threat actor uh, to disrupt the day-to-day operations. And because you can think in any enterprise, uh, critical data for for day-to-day work or anything related to it is present onto those endpoints. By doing a remote wipe, which is like kind of a remote factory reset, they destroyed that data. And without data, no organization can work. So of course, if the data is on server, it would still be there, but it would take a lot of time to take it back to the original level of productivity, if I must say. Uh, there are certain comments in the Zoom chat. Thank you, Bijan. Thank you, Xavier. We would definitely have, you can say, webinars in upcoming sessions for Hacker Summer. Like this was the last one, but there would be future webinars. So please look at our socials. We would announce it, and we would share more valuable content with you. Uh, you're welcome, Akshay.
You're welcome.
Yes, there would be a recording, and it will be dropped by Monday. And also the slides would be shared. So absolutely no worries for that. If you have missed any previous webinars and want to check those content, you can just look at this same journal channel of our Discord server, and you would find the recordings as well as the you can say slide deck for our previous webinars also. Uh, I would request the people asking in the Zoom chat to put their queries in Discord channel, so that if others also have a similar doubt, I could answer for for everyone. So yes, we have courses. We have the CARTP for learning more about this in depth and also practice it. It's the you can say certified Azure Red Teaming professional. And also, if you are interested in on-prem things, we also have some beautiful courses there. We recently updated back in February the CRTE, the Certified Red Teaming Expert. And also, we have like the endpoint stuff in CETP, which is a certified evasion tactics professional. So if you are into on-prem and endpoint world, we have course for that also. Our target and altered is to give provide content, valuable content to our subscribers um, for you can say red teaming and enterprise security. That is what we focus on. Yes, Lucifer. This is the from cloud to on-prem attack. Yes, we have the other way around also. I would, you can say, suggest to take our course and learn more about the other parts. We have two courses in Azure. One is like the professional version, and one is the expert version, and we cover that part as well.
Yes.
For something for getting global admin or just a normal user or so. Even like as I said, the access token does not need to have the MFA claim. The entire technique was that if you can anyhow like any technique, if you use, if the ultimate end goal is to get the graph access token for Office 365 client admin app, as Intune company portal no longer works, and get the you can say scope that we showed, device management configuration.readwrite.all, and you can use that to abuse via ADMX. In case if you're lucky enough to get a uh, scope with device management scripts.readwrite.all, then you can also execute platform scripts, which was shown in the earlier demonstration by Vishal. I hope I answered your question. Someone is typing. You can ask if you want to ask some specific query. I would try my best to explain to my fullest extent.
Thank you so much for your kind
Thank
words.
you. Thank you.
Okay, I think there is no more questions, so we can wrap up,
Yes.
right? So thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of this webinar. And yeah, we will catch you up in future, definitely. Um, all right. Bye. Bye, everyone, and happy weekend.
Bye. Enjoy your weekend. I hope it was fruitful for everyone who attended.